So we just now finishing up the Survivor Series where Daniel Bryan just lost to Brock Lesnar. And what do I say about this show? Sorry, just building the link so we will actually have watchers. Um, yeah. So what do we say about this show? It had some good matches, but the booking. This is I almost felt like when I was back in like 2015, like where they did basically everything wrong, but with some good matches. Like it was. Okay, I will start with the first thing. I didn't see the pre-show. I can't comment on the pre-show, but I know the Usos won one match, so it already goes contrary to the story because for some reason that match didn't count because it was on the pre-show. So way to bury the pre-show there. I doubt anyone actually watches the pre-show unless they're paid to review this shit. So yeah, good job making the show seem to mean even less. But okay, let's start by confronting the elephant in the room here. Raw won every single match. So one time by DQ minded, but they won every single match, every single team match, every single singles match. They won, and usually they won pretty decisively. This is very bad. Okay, and I know people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, but wrestling isn't real." And I'm like, "Yeah, we all know that, but not want to watch losers. It's why Bailey and Sasha Banks barely got any reactions tonight, despite being some of the best workers in the entire company. Why? Because nobody wants to watch, nobody cares about them anymore because they lose. And even if it's fake losing, people don't like losers. So SmackDown is going on Fox next year. Okay, little less than a year actually. Having them lose like this is not a good way because that show already is not doing well enough in the ratings for a Fox show as it is. They kind of need every boost they can get here. And I know they have there's a lot of good talent on SmackDown, but they looked like geeks and dweebs and weaklings. Like there was nothing worthwhile with this. Like, what do we have here? What? Okay, I will start going through the matches systematically. We open with the women's match. The evolution is going through. I see. Okay, and I think this women's match actually highlighted a lot of the issues I had with the women's division in WWE because most of these women aren't over. There was one woman who was over in this match, and that was Asuka. No one else was really over. And people go, "Have Nia Jax, she was hated." Yeah, this is more X-Pac heat than people thinking she's a bad guy and like, okay, you can get proper heel heat. That's possible. Ciampa is an excellent example of that. But this Nia Jax thing, I don't think. I know people are like, "Oh, should they capitalize it? What's going to do?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course they have to," but it's a very bad idea to build the character of a wrestler around the fact that she sucks. For one, pointing out that Nia Jax sucks is not a good idea, and pointing out that she consistently injures people is also not a good idea because you're highlighting a problem. And I know that you're trying to turn lemons into lemonade here, but send her to developmental so she can learn more. And I don't mean like take her off Raw, just limit her wrestling on Raw until she's learned more because she's not ready for the kind of position she's in. And I think the last year has proven that, to be honest. Now, the match wasn't that good. The match was actually kind of depressing. Like seeing the women because they worked so hard, but so many of them just weren't over, and the crowd died, or the mics were turned off. I don't know which one it was, but the match got just so depressing. And then at the end, like the one thing people wanted to see was to see Asuka, the Destroyer. Destroyer they fucked, by the way, by having her lose to Carmella. And Carmella was at this point is a joke character who does dance breaks. Yeah, as a have your undefeated wrestler, who was up until Pita the longest reigning wrestler of the longest reigning champion of the modern era, had the longest undefeated streak. Yeah, good idea. Yeah, not a fan of that. Not a fan of that at all. So, so they to explain what happened was that okay, Nia Jax pushes Sasha Banks from the top rope into onto the floor into the Asuka lock, and from there on, Asuka just lays there for some reason like a corpse, and she does 3 leg drops on her, and then a Samoan drop, and she wins. I mean, for fuck's sake, she should have used a punch if you really wanted to get the heat going, which is what WWE. The only thing WWE cares about is heat. Heat, 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 heat. Oh my god, there's so much heat on this show. And I will talk about this in a bit, but that's my big problem with the main roster as opposed to NXT and other wrestling programs. Heat. The constant focus on heat. And the next match, if I seem to recall correctly, was Nakamura versus Rollins. A really good match. A really, really good match. Nakamura was good, Rollins was great, and Rollins won. No Dean Ambrose interference, but they constantly talked about them. I'm like, could have focused a little bit on the match, please, commentators, but okay. You're kind of making Nakamura into third fiddle in the match he's in. I'm not a fan of that when it's on a pay-per-view. Like, if it's on Raw or something, that's a different thing, but when it's a champion versus champion match, on a pay-per-view and a big 4 pay-per-view, having the entire match focus be on Seth Rollins. He and Dean Ambrose have problems. And I know it's to build a storyline. They should mention it, but they constantly talk about it. I'm like, so you're kind of just erasing one half of this match. Yeah. Not a fan of that. And I'm not a fan, and this is where I realized Raw was going to take a clean sweep here. Because they won the women's match, and I thought the SmackDown was going to win the women's match, and I thought SmackDown was going to win this one due to Dean Ambrose interference. That didn't happen because Seth Rollins just won clean in a competitive match. One of the few times SmackDown actually looked properly competitive. That on the team match. There's so much I could take up on that team match, but yeah. Anyway, so then we went on, and I don't remember if and this is the talk of the night: AOP versus the Bar. No, oh my god, that pain, so much pain. That man. I like AOP. I like the Bar. Or I don't like to shake myself up for them. I like the Bar. But what was that? So, what happened? Well, AOP decided that, okay. No, not AOP. I mean, they fought a bit, and then Enzo Amore showed up in the crowd. Well, of course, we didn't see him, but he started acting like a fucking jackass, and the female security guard who took down Gronk just came and took him down like a bitch. That was great watching afterwards on Twitter. Yeah, fuck that guy. He's obviously has problems. Screw him. Not cool, man. I get that you left the company on bad circumstances and that you want to promote yourself and shit, but it's such a fucking disrespectful thing to do. One thing is when the fans start hijacking the show, and even then that's bullshit. But when a former wrestler goes to deliberately just fuck up a match like that, yeah, screw him. Screw Enzo Amore. He's a fucking anal wart. And then there was the Maverick piss angle. I'm not talking about it. That was horrible. It was horrible. If I was Rockstar Spud, I would leave. Because fuck this shit. Fuck this shit. Yeah. So, AOP won. So, Raw 3, SmackDown 0. Technically 1, but 0 actually for some reason. Okay, and that was the Cruiserweight title match. And these got, and I was offended by that match, but it was a good match. But fuck, these guys fucking, like, they killed it. I was convinced Mustafa Ali was going to die at any moment because he was thrown out, just out on the floor 3 times. And one time it was the sort of like, remember the buckle bomb that Rollins did? He was pushed off right into the fucking into the, not the buckle bomb to the barricade. He was pushed right off the top road back first into the barricade. I'm like, that's so easy to fuck up. So easy. Fuck, why did you do that? And then he was thrown outside of the ring another time, and then he was like landing on his face outside. Another time he was landing on his face on the apron, and I'm like, why do you have to kill yourself? And I mean, the match eventually got over. It was a bit depressing seeing how nobody reacted, but eventually people got over and started chanting 205 because it was a really good match, and Buddy Murphy's really good. I used to hate Buddy Murphy when he was in the tag team because I thought the entire act was obnoxious except for Alexa Bliss. But that match was really good, honestly. Ignoring that, I think that match took years of Mustafa Ali's life. I think that match was really good. And I will probably going to have to watch more 205 Live in the future. That's the general match quality I can expect. Because, yeah, that was great. And then I'm trying, sorry for fumbling here, but I'm trying to just remember all the matches. And I think the match after the Cruiserweight title match was the team match, which was depressing as shit. I think it was the team match, the last team match. So what happened in the last team match, you may ask? Well, one team, which was all of Raw's main event / upper mid-carders for the most part, who were all really big, except Finn Balor, but even then, Finn Balor was bigger than most of the team, and most of the SmackDown team, bigger and in better shape than most of them. Okay, you have fucking Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman and McIntyre. Oh yeah, Ziggler. I mean, okay, Ziggler was there. And then what was the other team? Samoa Joe, cool. The Miz, okay, who takes The Miz seriously in any kind of fight? Jeff Hardy. I mean, I'm just waiting to see when Jeff Hardy just falls apart, like some kind of like Lego figurine that's been thrown into a blender too many times. Like, yeah. And Rey Mysterio, cool. And Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon is going to kill himself if he continues to do that. If his goal is to murder the guy, and he plays it up, which is worse. He looks 60. Okay? He looks 60. You can barely remember his promos. He's so broken. Just, no. And it was the last few years of his career that's contributed to this, by the way, because he's stupid shit. And that was after like almost 10 years of not wrestling, and then suddenly just going out to wrestling again and being almost killing yourself in almost every single match. Yeah. Not a fan of that. Now, to explain this match, okay, what happens? Well, there's some internal tensions on the Raw team. SmackDown team is pretty much on the same page. Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman are primary factions here, or primary faction leaders, we can call it. And then there's a scruffing on who's going to start a match. McIntyre starts a match. Jones comes up from behind, Nikita clutch, but McIntyre counters it every time. Claymore kick, eliminate Joe. He was the previous #1 contender to the WWE Championship. He was fighting in Saudi Arabia for the title. Why are you eliminating him in less than 15 seconds? It's just a bad investment. This guy needed a win. This guy needed to look dominant because they keep pushing him as this dominant guy and he keeps losing. I'm like, okay, why would I take Joe seriously? And then after that, it was like, yeah, there was one guy who could physically stand up to those other guys. And the match was okay, but you couldn't take it seriously because you knew these guys would just maul the other team. They would maul Shane McMahon and they would maul The Miz. The only people who had any kind of credibility was Rey Mysterio and Jeff Hardy, and that was been hard-earned over many years. But, I mean, realistically, come on. We all knew how this was going to go. Braun Strowman destroys them after a while, after the two small guys had been removed, because, of course, it's a Vince McMahon production, so the small guys had to get out of the way. Then Braun Strowman destroys Rey Mysterio, destroys Jeff Hardy, destroys The Miz, and destroys Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon being the last one standing, by the way. Like last year, I mean, this is a cut out of last year, actually. Because that's how it ended too. Shane McMahon being the last guy, Braun Strowman destroying most of the entire team, and then just pinning the guy, and leaving everyone fucking anticlimactic as shit. And the entire crowd had been so pro SmackDown the entire evening. This pissed off the crowd. And at that point, it was over. There was no way there could be they could win at that point. Like SmackDown and Raw couldn't win anything. Raw had completely won the battle for brand supremacy. SmackDown looked like complete fucking losers. And before I get into the two best parts of the show, in my opinion, I'm just gonna talk a bit about what I think is depressing, or what I always think about when I watch main roster shows, especially pay-per-views. WWE, for most of its run, like, okay, under Vince McMahon and under Vince Senior, I can't comment on Jess McMahon, I'm not that well educated, but it was always built on heroes. It was built on having dominant baby faces who would, face adversity, but they would eventually win. And it would be great, and then they would keep winning, and they would be stars, and they would bring smiles to people's faces. A slogan WWE still uses about what they do, but they don't bring smiles to people's faces. It's the most depressing. Watching main roster shit is so depressing. Because, okay, the heroes are always dumb. Like, the faces are complete morons. They fall for basic tricks. And even then, if they don't get tricked, the heels just outfight them every time, even when it makes no sense. They just beat the shit out of them, and they win. And they win, and they win, and they win, and you can never have a good moment. Like, you never left with a happy feeling inside. The only exception was Evolution, and Evolution was kind of like a ECW one night stand kind of thing. It wasn't the traditional WWE production, let's call it that. But let's be honest here, and that showed many nice moments. But every other fight, like, you don't get nice moments, and whenever you get a nice moment, you can never appreciate it. Because you know they're going to rip it out of your hands at any moment. Like, Daniel Bryan comes back. And his first match back, they beat him up, leave him outside. You watch Shane McMahon sell for 15 minutes. And then he feuds with Big Cass. So you were so happy because your hero was going to come back, and then you do nothing with him. And you have Big Cass beat him up on TV. Great. And that's just how it goes. Like, with everything, like, people fight in their hometown, they always lose in their hometown. The Bailey versus Alexa Bliss, that feud, it always ends up depressing. Like, I've used the comparison that if you guys remember the Alexa Bliss versus Bailey feud, if that was a high school like Mean Girls movie, the movie would have been about two girls competing for the same boyfriend, the nice girl next door kind of girl, which would be Bailey in this case, and the bitch, like, high school cheerleader archetype. But in that movie, instead of the protagonist, good girl getting true love or whatever, and the mean girl getting her comeuppance or changing her ways, it would have ended with the mean girl tasering the main character and then fucking her boyfriend right in front of her, because that was that depressing. And that's most main roster stuff. You're never happy. Never a happy moment. Let's compare it to Takeover from yesterday. Okay, one heel won. Like, there was one heel win, and that was Shayna Baszler at the beginning of the show, which was, that was a thing. Sometimes the heels have to win, of course. I'm not saying the babyface should win every time, but the rest of the show, Aleister Black won. He beat the shit out of Gargano. Gargano got his component. It was two heel wins, actually. Sorry, my bad. And then Tommaso Ciampa won, which was a bit sad, but at the same time, Velveteen Dream was so great in that match that it kind of made up for it, because it could have been either or. And then at the end of the show, the good guy team beats the Undisputed Era, wins, celebrates, standing on top of the cages, in triumphant after coming through this war, and you're left with a happy feeling inside. There was nothing to be happy about for this show, because you rooted for everyone rooted for the SmackDown stuff, because the SmackDown were either portrayed as the faces or the underdogs, and then it just got the shit beaten out of them. Like, who would want to watch this? Now, I will go to the two last matches. I loved Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. It felt like a real fight. It was brutal. It was quick. It was smooth. It was full of counters. The story was great. They made everything look like a struggle. It wasn't just perfect smooth shit. It was amazing. And then they ended up with disqualification. And I'm on two minds here, because I loved the angle, but I think it was the wrong person. Because unless Nia Jax goes to SmackDown and Charlotte goes to Raw tomorrow, why have you turned on Ronda? Because, like, she beat up Ronda. Like, one thing is one candlestick strike and maybe a bit of a bit punching and then being like, I'm a heel now. No, Charlotte attacked her like she was her fucking nemesis. So who is she going to feud with? Is she going to go to Raw and feud with Ronda? Because if that's the case, sure, great. Is this going to lead up to WrestleMania? I think that Becky and Ronda is going to lead up to WrestleMania. Like, this was just weird. And why end the match in a DQ when it would have been much nicer to have a definitive winner this time around? You could still have the heel turn, because it would have been perfect for Charlotte to turn in anyway. But why have this ended the match in the midway, and you wanted the match to go a bit longer because it was so good. So you get the best match of the night, in my opinion. That might be the best match to me, my kind of wrestling, and it just ended. I'm like, okay, and then Charlotte goes crazy and beats the shit out of her. And I mean, that's cool. I was weirded out by the crowd cheer. I know they cheer for turns because that's the way they are, but it got so excessive. I'm like, Ronda in storyline, like, has been very respectful of the business. I don't get why these fans shouldn't turn on her. She could have been in Hollywood now, making money and making a lot more money in a much safer way, and with a much less of a time commitment than she does now. But she's wrestling, and she's doing a great job, and she's wrestling in mostly really good matches. So that's really weird to me. I don't get her on the height. And then people are like, she doesn't deserve to be champion. That stupid fanboy galore argument. I'm like, this is a fucking business. Shut up. She's a big star. Putting the title on her is good. She puts a lot of mainstream attention on stuff. She doesn't move ratings yet, as far as I can see. But she's a big attraction. That's good. The women's division is, we should be so glad at fucking Raw as a women's division, because that's exactly the kind of stuff we need to help elevate it even more, if you care about that. Okay, and then we come to the match that I have a lot of mixed feelings about. Okay, Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar. Okay, this match had no build, because it couldn't have gotten any build, because this match was decided last week on Tuesday. Okay, there's no build. Daniel Bryan has just randomly turned heel now. Well, not randomly, but he's turned heel now. This is his first outing since he turned heel, because he turned heel, this week. He turned heel on this Tuesday and got the championship. So, okay. Daniel Bryan is going to face off against Brock Lesnar. He comes out, he acts like a heel, his entrance is like a heel, his body language and facial expressions are heelish. He specifically taunts and does all of the changes to like play mind games with Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar gets in, and I'm like, okay, both of them are sort of heelish here. What are we supposed to get out of this match? And then Brock Lesnar starts beating the shit out of Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan's a total corpse for several minutes. I'm like, why are we doing this? Because you're building up sympathy with Daniel Bryan, because you're treating him, he's being a babyface. He's in a heat spot. And he just turned heel. why would you want to turn the guy who just turned heel? Why would you want him to make him sympathetic like a babyface? And I mean, that was what happened. He became a total face when he started fighting back against Lesnar later in the match. But I was like, I was just so prepared for this to be another 2014 Cena match. And I was talking about that match only worked because that was a once. You can only do that once. It was great. It was unexpected because it was Cena. It would have sucked if it had been anyone else. It was great because it was to Cena. And I know that was originally planned for Daniel Bryan. And I'm like, thank Jesus they didn't do that. And I was worried this was going to be the case. But no, Daniel Bryan eventually gets out after taking a bajillion suplexes and bear hugs. So it's 5 a.m. here. Anyway, and stuff. And I'm like, okay, what are we supposed to get out of this? Because that's what my question. Because, okay, Daniel Bryan starts fighting back, and it becomes really cool and suspenseful. And I mean, it's a good match. It's a really good match. But Daniel Bryan is a heel. He's a newly turned heel who needs heat. Why are we turning him into the sympathetic baby face? And the ending of this match, like a lot of Brock Lesnar matches, like the finishes just come out of nowhere. I want just an F5 and then I'm like, okay, at least he kicked out after more than one F5 this time. And I'm like, Joe that one time and Braun Strowman. But I'm like, well, they're not. I don't think it's a good idea to do this. And even then, like, I mean, I know he fought back and it was a bit of a competitive fight, but I mean, the WWE champion got for most part squash care. The WWE champion got for most part. The entirety of the SmackDown Brown have just been made into complete goofs and geeks. Like, who could ever care about them? Like, is this going to be the last Survivor Series with this theme? Because, like, Raw has won overall, apparently. I thought SmackDown won the first time, Raw won overall 3 years in a row. Who the fuck could care? I seem to recall that I actually ranted about that last year too, and like how SmackDown was made to look like complete losers. And it's the same thing. Now there's more losers than there ever been. And I'm like, why? Why are you doing this? I get that you want to have Raw win or whatever. That's not my point, but make it competitive. But it didn't. And that, and it was obvious that fans were so behind SmackDown too. Because I like what was supposed to get out of this. Like it was just heat. Constant heat. And I mean Brock Lesnar won also for heat. Despite the fact that Bryan is supposed to be the heel. But whatever. It's just so that was that was just so weird. This pay-per-view is really weird. It wasn't the worst one in the world. It wasn't like Backlash or whatever. But fuck. Couldn't they just have some common sense booking here and try to keep the brands and seem a little bit equal? This was a slaughter. What the fuck? Anyway, I'm going to leave now because it's 5 a.m. So, yeah, that was my very incoherent thoughts on Survivor Series 2018.